Jumping into the number 5 spot of the top 5 best keyboards for gamers in 2025 is the IROK MU68, coming in at a price tag of only $79.99. If you guys want to check out any of the 5 keyboards in this video, there's Amazon links below for the US, UK, Canada, and international links, but this keyboard is the best value pick on the list. Now, right away, this is a 65% form factor with a solid aluminum case. This thing is heavy. It has attractive angles and a subdued styling that makes it look like a custom keyboard. Really impressed with the build for this price. Very premium. Now, as for dampening, this has pour-on foam between the plate and the PCB, and a switch dampening pad, as well as more foam in the case. This gives it a more muted sound to the board, but that pour-on foam does a good job making it sound creamy. Now for switches, this uses IROK's own magnetic switch that has a medium weight to it and is comfortable for gaming, but there is some scratchiness to them, but that's where the valueness comes in. Now, the other keyboards on the list do have a more satisfying feeling switches, but this is the cheapest on the list, and they are still hot swappable if you want to change them out with other magnetic switches. As for adjustable actuation, they are adjustable from 0.1 millimeters to 4 millimeters in 0.1 millimeter increments, which is exactly what we want. Now for software, this uses IYK software, and I was honestly very impressed. It was extremely easy to use, and it actually works, unlike some of the other Chinese brand software. This also has a ton of features that you would expect, like adjustable actuation, rapid trigger, toggle key, DKS, and an 8,000 Hz polling rate. Now, I much prefer this software compared to something like Armory Crate, which I recently used with the ROG Falcon Ace HFX keyboard. And yeah, it was pretty buggy and pretty unusable. However, this software is actually surprisingly great. It's just impressive how good this software is without being a major brand, and honestly, how not great Armory Crate is from being from ROG. Alright, for keycaps, these are double shot PBT. They have a slight texture to them and are obviously not shine through, again, giving a more custom keyboard feel and look. As for the stabilizers, they are pretty tight in the plate with some ticks and some having more lube than others, but take a listen for yourself and judge it for yourself. And that is how it sounds. Now for connectivity, this is wired only via USB Type-C, and for RGB, it is bright here. Again, no shine through, but it's fully customizable with solid colors, tons of modes, and everything you'd expect from RGB on a keyboard. With that, let's move on to the number 4 spot. And this is the Corsair K70 Pro TKL, coming in at a price tag of $129.99 at the time of filming. This uses a TKL form factor with an included magnetic wrist rest, which I will say is very nice and plush. Now, this is actually one of my favorite keyboards. I think it is my favorite keyboard from Corsair. The build quality is the best Corsair has ever done with any of their keyboards, with a very solid plastic shell with a beautiful brushed metal top plate. Dampening here is also the best they've ever done, with multiple layers resembling a mechanical keyboard rather than other gaming brand keyboards. With all the layers of dampening though, this isn't just a muted and boring sound though. It actually has a unique sound to typing on it, which I appreciate, and something you don't expect from Corsair. Switches here are the Corsair MGX Hyperdrive switches, which are extremely smooth. I really like these a lot. Actuation is adjustable from 0.1 millimeters to 4 millimeters in 0.1 millimeter increments. Now, for software, you're obviously using Corsair IQ here, which looks visually really good and has some really nice features, like storing profiles on the keyboard itself, and has all the modes you'd expect, like rapid trigger, SOCD, dual action, and it also has a game mode button that's physically on the keyboard itself to optimize the keyboard to get the lowest input lag possible with an 8,000 Hz polling rate, and that is pretty cool to have, especially if you're really into competitive gaming. Now for keycaps, they are shine-through here, and they're thicker than your average shine-through keycaps with a slight texture to them. Stabilizers here feel great, but the spacebar does have a tick on it, as well as some of the other stabs. However, this is a very easy fix with just a little bit of grease. But don't take my word for it though, take a listen to the sound test. Now for connectivity, this is wired with a detachable USB Type-C. RGB is fantastic. It's Corsair. They do it so well. And this also probably has the most unique and different modes in the industry, also being super, super bright. So if you wanted to put some shine through keycaps that are more like crystal keycaps or something like that, this RGB absolutely knocks it out of the park for that. But with that, let's move on to the number 3 spot, which is the Womier RD75, coming in at a price tag of $119.99. This uses a 75% form factor and is an all-metal machined case here, weighing in at just over 1,700 grams. However, this case has one of the coolest designs ever. This uses metal magnetic snap-in pieces as well as a magnetic daughter board to allow for rapid disassembly and rapid assembly. This is the time clip of me disassembling and reassembling this keyboard. Check it out. We're gonna time you on how quick you can disassemble it. Stopwatch up, 3, 2, go. Are you kidding me? Now we're gonna reassemble it. Stopwatch, 3, 2, 1. What the heck, guys? That is the coolest thing ever. Absolutely wild. Now, besides this, the RGB is very vibrant and it has a sweet light up little logo. Dampening is great here, but obviously a dream to mod because of all the different dampening and fun things you can try putting in the case and testing all those different sounds literally within seconds. This is literally a modder's dream. Oh, and this has full QMK VIA support, which is amazing. Now for switches, this is the only non-Hall effect keyboard on the list. If you prefer mechanical switches and customization in a keyboard, that's why this one made it onto the list. Switches here are Womier's own fully palm switches that are pre-lubed and surprisingly smooth for a palm switch, but completely unmodified. This board with these switches sounds so good, especially the number row literally sounds so creamy, but also glassy like ceramic almost. Really, really sick. Now, obviously, this is fully hot swappable with 3 and 5 pin switches, so you can swap in any switch you want. Keycaps here are cherry profile, which I love and make this feel very premium. And the printing is nice and crisp, and they are thick keycaps, which adds to that awesome sound profile. Stabilizers here are tuned literally perfectly without any ticks or rattles, but don't take my word for it though, take a listen to the sound test. Now for connectivity, this uses a 2.4 gigahertz USB dongle wirelessly or Bluetooth wirelessly, or you can use this wire with a detachable USB Type-C, and this has dual 4,000 milliamp hour batteries, meaning you have 8,000 milliamps of battery. This has an insanely long battery life. If what you want is a mechanical keyboard to modify and you want mechanical switches over Hall effect switches, this is the best. But with that, let's move on to the number 2 spot, which is the SteelSeries Apex Pro Gen 3, coming in at a price tag of $219.99 to $239.99, depending on the form factor. This is available in both TKL and full-size form factors. Now, this case is made of plastic with a matte black aluminum top plate. There's also a customizable OLED screen in the top right corner next to the volume wheel, where you can adjust the switch actuation, RGB settings, toggle on and off rapid trigger, and enable SOCD or rapid tap as SteelSeries calls it. Now, it's super easy to use on the fly and something I really enjoyed having, not having to go into the software. Now, as for dampening, this has multiple layers of foam inside the case, and I think this sounds pretty decent. Now, the switches, these uses SteelSeries OmniPoint 3.0 switches. They are factory lubed, have a great weight to them, and they are pretty dang smooth. Overall, I really enjoyed using them in game, and obviously these are Hall effect switches with adjustable actuation from 0.1 millimeters to 4 millimeters in 0.1 millimeter increments, exactly what we want. Now the software, like I mentioned previously, a lot of the features can be changed on the keyboard itself, including recording macros. However, other settings such as dual action, toggle key, protection mode, and RGB is controlled through SteelSeries GG, which in my testing worked very well with this keyboard. There is a learning curve, but once you explore it a bit and figure out where everything is, it's pretty easy to use. Now, keycaps here are double shot PBT and are shine through, being very consistent. The stabilizers here do have some rattle, but they are unlubed and ungreased, so with a little bit of effort, you can make this keyboard sound so much better. But don't take my word for it though, take a listen to the sound test. For connectivity, you get wireless connectivity in the TKL variant with a 2.4 GHz USB-C dongle, or you can use this obviously just wire with a USB Type-C. Now, RGB, as expected, is great here. It's not as bright as the Corsair keyboard, but it's nice and vibrant, and it's got tons of customizability, really everything you'd expect. But also, if you need a bigger form factor keyboard like a full size, there's very few gaming keyboards that are this good that offer a full size, so this is a great pick for you. But with that, let's move on to the number one best gaming keyboard of 2025. This is the Wooting HE60 Plus and the Wooting HE80. This is still the king of HE keyboards. Now, this comes in at $174.99 for the 60% and $199.99 for the 80%. Now, both of these keyboards aren't exactly identical. It's not like getting a 60% and 80%. They are going to sound a little different, and they are going to feel a little different, and their case is definitely different. Now, both of these cases are made completely of plastic, but with some unique design elements on the cases, like the Take Control decorative fabric tag on the HE60 Plus, which I personally actually really like, but some of you may think it's tacky. There are also full metal case options from Wooting for the HE80, and there's a lot of aftermarket cases for the HE60. Now, if you're into modding it personally, I would choose the HE60 since it is a standardized 60%, whereas the HE80 is not, so it's harder to find more aftermarket stuff. The HE60 is tray mounted with a nice amount of dampening, while the HE80 is gasket mounted with, again, a great amount of dampening. Both sound solid though. For switches, the 60% variant gets the Gateron and Lecker switch, which I actually really enjoy the feeling of. It's extremely smooth. Some of them may be slightly over-lubed, but that might have been fixed since my variant. Now, the 80% variant uses the Lecker L60 version 2s, which are again very nice and a bit better lubed from the factory compared to the previous version. And obviously, both of these have full adjustable actuation from 0.1mm to 4mm in 0.1mm increments. Now, the software here. You can either use the Wootility software web-based app, or you can download the full software. That is what's excellent here. It's the best software in the entire industry for gaming keyboards. You really have to use it to understand why it is absolutely the best, but you're just going to have to take my word for it if you haven't used it before. There is so much customization. It is stupidly well laid out. Everything works every single time. It is by far the best. Now, for modes, they constantly update this, and they constantly update the older keyboards too, so you're never going to feel like you're missing out when you buy one of these Wootings. All of the previous keyboards that they've released have all been backwards compatible with all new software updates, which is a really big pro. Now, obviously, these have all the standard modes like Rapid Trigger, SOCD, Dynamic Keystroke, Toggle Key, Mod Tab, and Gamepad, which is so fun for racing games, which lets you modulate the accelerator like a controller, but obviously on a keyboard. Now, it even has its own tachyon mode, which decreases latency like that Corsair keyboard. Overall, the best software in the industry. Now, the base PBT keycaps on the HE80 and 60 are slightly textured, and the shine through is fantastic. I did get their upgraded $50 keycaps for the HE60 with an awesome pattern, and besides the look, they're really not worth $50 in terms of quality, as there's some warping on the spacebar. Now, stabilizers here are solid on both boards. They feel great and were very well tuned out of the box. The HE80 was perfect with a super satisfying sound, and the HE60 Plus was also great, but had a super slight tick on the spacebar, but really 99% of you probably wouldn't notice that. But don't take my word for it though, take a listen to the sound test. For connectivity, both of these use a detachable USB Type-C, and for RGB, well, obviously, it is insanely bright. On both models, there is a ton of customization, as well as having a sweet 5 LED RGB spacebar. There's literally 5 of them there. So for customizing this with other different shine-through keycaps, absolutely immensely good for that. But again, if you want to check out any of the 5 keyboards in this video, there's Amazon links below for the US, UK, Canada, and international links. But this is a consumer tech review, and I'll see you guys in the next video.